Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to another Fired Up Friday. And as always, there is plenty to talk about.
Way too much to talk about. Always, every 2 weeks.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I kind of, gave Tiff just a little kind of heads up of what I was thinking about. One of the things, because the news, when I was checking the news today, one of the first things that I happened upon was the decision on the slush fund. And that really made me smile because that and the Knicks have really given me some joy this week, even though they stress me out.
I think it's like a weird thing with the Knicks because I made a post yesterday and I said back in the '90s and like early 2000s, people did not like the Knicks because they had like bad boys on the team, right? They had like all these players who were kind of like abrasive and they were just kind of like they were just a lot. So and it was like the Bulls rivalry, and then you had the Indiana Pacers. You had all these different teams that were in the mix. I mean, all these East Coast teams that were in the mix. The Heat, like all these teams that were really good at that point. And so it was a lot of rivalry. But now the NBA is a whole lot different. And I think that people are like really liking this team. I mean, all the people on the Knicks team, they all seem like really nice guys. They all have beautiful wives, children. They all play really well. Three of them went to school together. So they have good camaraderie. And I think that makes for like a really good team. Their coach, he's kind of been around a while. He got fired from one of his teams. He ends up on the Knicks. So it's like a lot of feel good stories with
Hmm.
mixed in. And then you just have like all the things that have been going on. So it's just something that brings people together. I feel sorry for the Spurs fans because no one cares about them. They're like, whatever. But people really are excited about this team and the way they've won. It makes it feel good. So everybody from all across the country is excited to cheer for them, even if you're not a New Yorker. Of course, I'm a New Yorker. I love the Knicks back in the days. I kind of have stopped watching basketball a while ago. It just wasn't for me because the games are way too long. It's boring to me. And I just
Anything there long, try
yeah,
baseball.
well, baseball is long too. Yeah, I gave up on that too. But even so, it once you're if when you're a New Yorker, your teams are your teams for life. So it doesn't matter. And so I'm excited. And it just brought back a lot of nostalgia from when we had made the playoffs before and when we were in the finals, and unfortunately we didn't win. And it's just been a really long time. And of course, I think having Mamdani as the mayor to tie it in politically, I think people, he's kind of made it more exciting for people too, because people feel like, okay, well, the mayor, they have all these watch parties. And I even saw this little kid. He was so cute. He was from the Midwest or somewhere. He was a cute little white kid, and he was outside the garden. I guess his parents were on vacation, and he's like, yeah, and all the young guys were coming up to him like, yeah, buddy, and the mom is like, I think I'm gonna have a Knicks fan for life now. So I'm just like people interact. Well, of course, there's some dumbasses who always do something stupid and kind of mess it up for everybody, and then of course the man went there. The demon himself went to the
Oh
garden,
my God.
and that was interesting. He got booed, which we all knew was going to happen.
A whole jinx on the game that night.
Yeah, and I really was like, they're gonna lose because I already know that this man is going to make a spectacle, and people are gonna be all out of sync because he ruins everything. Everything Trump touches dies. Thankfully, he didn't kill my Knicks, but I was laughing. I don't know if you saw the post where there was a whole bunch of people that went to Madison Square Garden. There was an employee who said he staged like the entire inside of Madison Square Garden. He worked there. There were people that were staging outside. They, they had their Palo Santo. Like they were not playing. I mean, New Yorkers are funny when it comes to stuff like that. They're like, we got to get all this bad juju away from our team. Then they came back and won in that game. after Wu-Tang Clan performed, and everybody was like, it was Wu-Tang. So it was just so many funny things that have been happening that you got to kind of just laugh and enjoy the superstitions that New Yorkers have, because we have plenty.
Yes, but the sage thing got me, but they probably needed to do that.
Oh yeah, somebody said bring the sage to DC because we need to get him out of here.
Exactly. So that takes me to kind of the next topic that I wanted to kind of talk about because let's see where to start. Well, first of all, news wise, I was happy. I told you when, I started checking the news because I've really been unplugging a lot. Of course, we're going to stay informed, but I'm not engaging a lot. I am really leaning into intentional joy. I'm not letting this this climate or this man,
Right.
take my joy. But I was really happy, like I said, about the Knicks. And like you, haven't watched a game in a really long time. And it's probably because I don't have any men in the house now. I come from a sports family and always kind of watched it, but without any of them being around, like, I could call my son up and, sometimes a few times, during certain, like the Super Bowl.
Right.
We'll talk a little while on the phone while we're watching the game or something like that. But Spoutable has some cool pods. And so they had a sports ball pod, and I was in there, and that was really fun. I found myself really enjoying it and actually yelling and clapping and cheering here in the house by myself. So it was really, really good. And it just was one of those nail biters that kept you on the edge of your
I was
seat.
asleep. I was asleep in the last game. I went.
What?
Yes,
You missed that?
I missed it. I woke up at 2:30 in the morning because I went to sleep and they were winning. I'm back here. Let me see. Hold on.
No worries.
Sorry, Cal, was my daughter calling. I was there. They were losing. Well, the Spurs were winning, and the Knicks were losing by like 20 something. And I was like, you know what? I am going to sleep. I'm not staying up. I was like, this is not even close. So I went to sleep. And then when I woke up, of course, I picked up my phone and went to Twitter, and they were like, they won. They came back, and I was like, what? I missed this. So it was kind of funny. So I ended up spending like a whole hour up at 2:30 to something in the morning, watching highlights and kind of laughing at all the different posts and seeing people so excited. And it was fun. So I'm mad that I missed it live, but I also missed the first. I go like a granny. I go to sleep like so early. Me and Darius.
I know.
Phil wasn't here. He was away. So usually I would stay up, like you said, when you have a man in the house or someone else to watch it with. But by 9:30, 10 o'clock, I'm beat most days. So I was already in the bed and I was like, they're losing. They're probably not going to come back. But they did it. I was shocked.
And it was awesome to see them do that. I'm so happy for them and for your city.
Yeah, they got to win, though. They got to actually win the championship. Otherwise, because we've been here before, we've got to game 7, and then we had the game where John Starks, he threw up all those bricks, and we ended up losing. So we have a sordid history with game 7. So we need to
understand
tomorrow. The city's going to go crazy tomorrow because this weekend is a Puerto Rican Day parade. It's on Sunday. So if they win on Saturdays, people are not going to know. They're not going to sleep. Like, they're going to act crazy. Thankfully, it's not home. It's in San Antonio. So people will probably be at watch parties and outside, and it'll be nice. But they're going to be crazy if they win for a couple of days.
Yeah, well, the energy is there, and I'm happy you guys have some positive energy to kind of, roll on for a while because, like
we need it.
Yes, because moving down to DC, it kind of getting crazier, like there. I mean, it's already crazy just with him being there. And of course, he had done a lot of things. In the city, tearing down the White House before he even told anyone, and the reflecting pool, and now this huge carnival that he has erected on the lawn. What is going on there? And I heard he is sending more troops in.
Yeah, because he has to make sure the city is safe because it's not safe enough for all these people that he's invited to come to this thing. Remember, he said he didn't want any, what did he say? He didn't want any fat people at this UFC fight.
Oh
Yeah,
yes, even the
fat
military people.
military fat people. Or there was a word that they fatsos or something that they used. It was really stupid, but he didn't
Oh,
want
he
people.
hadn't looked in the mirror, has he?
No, he's oblivious to it. But he's so fat and swollen, it's not even funny. But he's erected this whole ginormous thing on the lawn. It looks absolutely absurd. I am not going to DC like forever until this man is gone because it just frustrates me. I mean, I will if I have to, but I don't want to. I don't want to see what he's done to the White House. It's disgusting. I was watching an interview where people were asking about the reflection pool. I think last time we talked about the fact that they had, they were still painting it. And so they were asking people, this interviewer, I think he was from NBC, and he's asking the people, like, what do you think about this? They're like, it looks the same. Like they spent $13 million for it to look the same. And then there's algae growing in there, so they have to keep like cleaning it out because whatever paint they use was not the right paint. So it's just like stupid things like that. Then the Kennedy Center, I guess they tried to appeal that. They got shut down for that today again. So they're going to take the name off. There's nothing he can do. I mean, there's so many stupid things that are happening in DC, and it's all a result of it because he's a chaos agent. He just loves to create chaos.
I mean, that's what he does. Wherever he goes, there he is, and chaos ensues shortly after. I mean, that is exactly what he does. And I hate it for DC, but, I hope that, the judiciary branch keeps handling a lot of these things as they are. Like I said, I was really thrilled today to find out that, the judge reopened that case that they said, nah, never mind. We don't want to sue y'all. And she was like, no, come back here. And what I like about her ruling is that, I think she's given them a week to respond. And the response has to include, I think it is the US Treasury Secretary and Todd Blanche's name. Like they have to sign it. And my understanding, I'm getting this interpretation from other legalese lawyers like Glenn Kirshner and some folks like that, that what she is doing is basically setting it up so that if they decide to go ahead anyway, as they often do, try to ignore the courts, that there will be some accountability that she can take with them. Like it will be, I guess, contempt of court or something. So I like that she's,
They said it was dead. Like last week, they were saying it's dead. They're not going forward with it. Now they're trying to sue for it. I know, the officers are suing over it. I mean, it's just, why are we giving these people money again? These people are criminals. They got off because you pardoned them. It wasn't like they were found not guilty. You're giving them money, reparations. Let's call it what it is. Giving them reparations because they helped you try to steal an election.
Yeah, and I feel like it is also a preparation for a repeat. Like, hey, you got paid the last time. Come on, join in. Because I didn't even kind of give you a heads up on this, but I know you follow the news. So, I mean, the crazy stuff that they're doing with the mail-in ballots and having DeJoy in charge. I mean, what does that do? Now, of course, for folks like us here in Tennessee, has no effect whatsoever because there's limited mail-in ballot opportunities. I do fall into the requirements because it's disabled people and seniors, but no way in hell am I putting my ballot in the mail. Okay.
I mean, I said, you know what? I'm not even going to attempt to do this. I am going to, here we have a lot of drop boxes. So most people go and they just go to the early voting place, and in the library, they have different places where you can drop it off. And I think that's what I've watched them do it last election. Most people were just going to the drop boxes to actually the most secure way. Why even deal with the mailbox? I mean, in the mail and the delays and whatever else stupidity that they are trying to do with the United States Postal Service. I even saw that they were not saying that they weren't even going to deliver people's mail-in ballots, which is insane.
Unless they got instruction or some kind of list from the White House or whatever that
I'm
they
like,
would
what are
use.
you doing?
Exactly. And the White House, wants all of the states, voting roles so that they can make this master list for the, post office or whatever. And, of course, for states like mine, Tennessee, no, they didn't get a fight at all. It's like, here, you want some more? You want some more, sir? But I am glad that many other states and some red states are saying, no, you can't get that, because I mean, that's kind of like him, going to, federalizing the elections without even it being voted on. But that's par for the course for
Yeah,
him,
just silly. And you know what? It's unfortunate, but I do think that we have quite a few elections coming up in the next couple of weeks. We have a lot of primaries in blue states, and we saw what they were trying to do in California. They said that the election was like rigged. They were trying to spew all that stuff because Spencer Pratt lost, and like, why did it take so long? You see how all of that died once they declared that Hilton won for the governor, in that second slot. All of that talk went away because they saw that their guy was actually in the jungle primary. He actually won one of the two slots. So they were like, oh, okay, fine. But had Steyer actually got that second spot, they would have been crying that this was rigged, and they would have continued their lies and their manipulation and saying that California has unfair elections and the mail-in ballots suck. And hello, people in California, whether they're Republican, independents, or Democrats, they all vote. Here, we have a lot of people that are Republican that have chosen to vote using mail ballots. They got used to it because of COVID. I mean, most people started using those mail-in ballots because we changed our laws as well to be able to accommodate more people to vote by mail. So now all you have to do is be on a list, and you would automatically get your ballot in the mail. I'm not on the list because I like to go. Hey, Myron, surprise!
Hi, ladies.
I didn't know you were coming.
Thank you for joining. I just sent him the link at the last minute, and I was like, pop in if you can. And
I had to finish my donut, but I'm here now.
Oh, look at you.
Go ahead, Tiff. I heard you.
Yeah, we're just talking about your state, your crazy state you got going on over there. Lord of mercy, with the lies. But at least we got Javier to be the nominee after all of that craziness for the last 40-something days.
That was nice. And you know what? Steyer conceded with that 10-page memo on Twitter. But you know what? Open up that checkbook, sir. You got all that money.
Thank you.
Don't close the vault now.
Exactly. Let's go. Let's we got a lot of down ballot races that we need to win. So get on it, sir. I mean,
yeah, if you're down with the Democrats, use some of that money to help the Democrats. That's what I say.
He spent $219 million, which is the equivalent of like $219 for us, right? I mean, you're a billionaire. Right. What is $219 million? It's like a chump
pocket change. Yeah.
But it's still, when you think about it, it's a lot of money. And I was reading like where he spent a lot of that money. Of course, he used it to spend on influencers, which is, we all knew that was kind of part of it.
Influencers he got for very cheap, I understand.
Well, some of them he paid like $400,000 or $500,000 for, and the consultants that he paid mega money to. But a lot of that money, which is always a crazy thing to me, because these lefties are like, well, Javier took money from the corporation and he Meta this and McDonald's that. And I'm like, do y'all realize that he spent $198 to give corporate these media companies mad amount of money? Like Meta, how many ads did he run on Meta? How many did he run on Google? I mean, all of these things that were happening, they don't use logic, because guess what? These TV executives, they just got bankrolled with all this ad money.
Right. This is like Amazon Prime Day for the networks, getting all that money. Right. It's like it's political season. They love this.
It absolutely is.
I made a post we all get paid by corporations. Like, let that go.
Exactly. That's what I've been saying.
Let it go. It's
Yeah,
legal.
you're gonna
It's
name
the law.
one, name them all.
That's right. And Tiff, like I think you made a post the other, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, about how they have no control over the super PACs. Like,
Correct.
super PACs can spend on candidates because that's the law. Like that, you can do
Unlimited. Unlimited. It's unlimited. And some states have made laws about that, and there's like disclosures and things like that, which is what we would expect. You want transparency, but realistically, if we're being honest, candidates cannot coordinate. Well, they're not legally. So let's be real. They're not legally supposed to coordinate. But what they do is they put a red box on their website, and that red box signals to these super PACs how they want them to message to others with their, the things about them. So so if you go to somebody's website, you'll see this box, and it's red, and it has all the information about them, their experience.
Kind of like a press release.
Yeah, it's kind of like,
I didn't know that.
It's like a signal. It's like, hey guys, I am willing for you to do this for me, but I can't coordinate with you. I'm also not going to denounce you either if you go and start attacking my opponent, or if you want to help me. And that's where it gets really tricky, right? Because that's what happened in Texas, where James Talarico, which I had called out at the time, and Kenny did too, is that he's saying that he's not for PAC money. He thinks super PACs are, need to go away. He wants to get rid of it, which is great. We all want to do that, right? But here's the thing. As soon as the PAC started attacking Jasmine, he didn't denounce that. He didn't come out. He didn't say not a damn thing. He wasn't like, hey, maybe this isn't a good thing. Maybe you shouldn't do this. What was the thing that they said in their press statement? We can't coordinate with these groups. Okay. You can't coordinate, but you aren't telling them to stop either. So you're not denouncing it. You're saying you're basically giving them permission to keep attacking. And they like when I call that out.
Of course not.
And that's kind of how it works, right? So, and then there's also behind the scenes stuff, right? So people are talking behind the scenes, and they're saying, hey, you want to help my candidate? Or depending on which group you're talking about, like in my race, which I've been going off about for the last
seen those posts.
you have Crypto, who has spent $4.8 million. Crypto is not here because they want to make friends. They're here because they want a candidate that is going to help them with legislation. Let's be clear. Right. And then you also have UDP, which is AIPAC, which people have their things with AIPAC. I don't hate AIPAC. I don't care about AIPAC. But what I do not like about what AIPAC does is that they are using deceptive ways to actually manipulate people, because their PAC is not called when they're putting on commercials. They're like, hey, we're AIPAC. They're like, we're United Democracy Project. Yes. And so people don't know what that means. They're assuming, because it looks like it's coming from the candidate. Right. And then at the end it says, this is paid for United Democracy Project. It's like, and people don't really recognize that, because people, even smart people, astute people, savvy people that understand this. There was a woman that I follow on Threads. She made a whole voter guide for Prince George's County, which is a huge county. So she's very smart. She understands, what's happening. And even she came to me yesterday and she was like, so why are they putting all these ads on for these candidates? Or like, why does the candidate say no? And I said, well, actually the candidate is not supposed to be coordinating with it. She's like, I never knew this. So people are not aware of how all of this ties together and how it all works. I don't really have an issue, so to speak, with super PACs per se, because there's really good super PACs like Emily's List, that vote. What is it? The vote vets. There's another one that's for veterans. I forget what it's called. And there's groups. There's all these different.
I'm on the board of a PAC. And, it's to get Democrats elected to the state house, but we don't put our fingers on the scale. We wait until the primary and we push it out to all of them.
And super PACs don't have to be all bad, right? They, like I said, Emily's List is a very specific group. that is for women candidates. They put on ads for people that they endorse. There's other PACs too, but these folks act like these PACs don't exist, which is like the Working Families Party.
Because
They
a
have
lot of
super PAC.
yeah, a lot of them don't know, as you said, they are not aware of actually what PACs are and what the rules are around them operating, you know. So it's really easy. It's a really easy kind of sloganeering that they're doing by just targeting APAC as if they're the only ones. But you know,
APAC is not even a real. The thing is, APAC is not even a real PAC. That's the part that kills me. APAC is not a real.
Exactly.
APAC is a lobbyist group who then bundles donations. So they get like all these donations for this one person, and then they go and make a deposit of like $400,000 to, let's say, their favorite one that they love to talk about, Hakeem Jeffries, right? They go and make a deposit of 400,000, but it's not that's not from like one individual PAC. It's like they're all throwing all these things together, and then they're bundling and they're putting it together. So people don't even understand how that works.
You know what? Back in the it's funny how language changes, because back in the 90s and 2000s, everybody was railing against lobbyists, right?
Yes,
you never hear that anymore.
I mean, that's what they are.
Right? It's just the modern day lobbyists. And like you said, it's just sloganeering. We have that happening in a race in California with Doris Matsui, because her district, she's 81 and she's running for re-election. And she's been in office since 2005. And she took over when her husband, Bob Matsui, passed, and he was in office 20 years. So that's almost 50 years between husband and wife. And so the DSA, they ran a DSA candidate, Mai Vang is her name. And she is saying that she's not DSA, she's just endorsed by DSA. But David Hall came out here with her and they've campaigned for her. And she has this video up on TikTok. She's railing against corporate donors and PACs. And so I didn't call her out on it, but I asked her about it. And the Democratic establishment, like she's going on that verbiage, right? And I asked her about it because she hadn't spoken about the VRA and she hadn't spoken about these things. And then, quite honestly, she gave a good answer online. I couldn't reach her. She did. I couldn't reach her office. They, for whatever. But she finally said, yeah, I understand the VRA and Black voters and what they've done, and we have to protect this and so on and so forth. And she ended up, at the end of the primary, she beat Doris Matsui. She got more votes than she got. And so now they're going to the general, and the Matsui people are a little bit panicked. She has a lot of old style Democratic donors in this area, and they're wealthy. And she had gotten the endorsement from the Sacramento Bee since forever, but this time they endorsed Mai Vang. And
I read the stories from the Sacramento Bee quite often.
Yeah, they want Doris Matsui out of there. And you know what? Look, I'm going to criticize the Democratic Party because she is 81, and the Democrats, there's nobody that came up after her. And so the DSA saw an opening, go right for her, and they have a shot at taking this. They have a legitimate shot in November of winning, because Doris Matsui is not good in interviews anymore, and she has her staff handle questions, and let's just say her age shows.
Yes, she's gotten too comfortable and relaxed. And I mean, I hate some of the language that they use and everything, but they're not altogether wrong. And like we understand, like I think younger people need to get in there. I do believe in the progressive policies that they advocate for. I just don't think they do a very good job of understanding and educating their supporters of how to get there. And I mean, for them, it just seems to be about, kind of the online vibes. Like, I don't feel like they really invest in actual grassroots educating and mobilizing. Now, if they could do that, they would have a better chance, and I would listen more. I mean, because I don't really look at the labels and things that much anyway. Because, I told you, the Justins here, they are under that DSA umbrella as well. I don't pay any attention to that label. I am watching the work and the focus that they have in that work in our community. and they have their finger on the pulse, and they are very good at mobilizing energy and people around, you know, important causes. They bring national attention to us. So I don't see them as problematic. And I don't really see like this progressive wing as problematic. It's some of their tactics, you know.
Yeah, because I like to say that Black voters, we are progressive.
Exactly. The
Right,
Democratic Party is progressive
Yes.
because of Black voters.
Yes, that's exactly right.
I always laugh because you did a really good video on that, Myron, where you were like, I'm progressive. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, he's like, I am a leftist. I am the prototypical leftist.
Yes.
Right.
You
And
know,
it was-
I love John.
and I
Lewis.
loved it
He
because
was
I'm like, you know
progressive all
what?
the way.
I'm like, you know what? These people are so full of shit because guess what? We don't, the thing is that they like to label all of this stuff, right? And I'm so over labels, like Z said.
Yes.
The whole,
Yeah.
even today, so I don't know if you guys saw this poll, I posted about it earlier. They asked Democratic voters in this poll, and I'm looking at it right now. It says, how would you like to see the Democratic Party, right? So it was like move to the center, move to the left, not moving in any direction, or don't know. 47% of the people who are Democrats said that they would like to move to the center. Okay, what was the center to somebody who's like they don't even know what the center is, right?
Yeah, like what is that?
So then they said, "What's your opinion of socialism?" So those same people that wanted to move to the center, 49% of those people said they were favorable to socialism. Like, what are we even doing here? Like, this is the joke, right? Because people don't know what they even want.
They don't even know.
I can tell you from just my district is such a strange district, right? Because we go all the way from the top, which is my literally, I'm at the very top of the district, and it goes all the way down to Charles County. So you have like the whole of Southern Maryland, middle to Southern Maryland. The things that I see are so wild. People here, they hate AIPAC. Okay, this is the online.
They hate AIPAC. Yeah.
They cannot stand AIPAC. They don't like any of this. The thing is, they don't even really care about the corporate money. First of all, let me just be honest with you.
AIPAC, because it's another way of just saying genocide.
That's
it. And it's not even so much about the genocide or even so much about Israel. What people are saying is that they don't want people who are bots. They don't want people who can be used by these outside groups and influenced by them. So the one guy who's running, who I've been talking about, which is Adrian Bawafo, he is somebody who is endorsed by what the progressives would say by the establishment, quote unquote, right? So you have Westmore, you have Angela Alsobrooks, you have Steny Hoyer, whose seat this is, and you have a whole bunch of people within the Democratic Party who have endorsed him. Now, people are fighting back against this because they're like, we don't care that they endorse these folks. We just want somebody that is going to go to Washington and is going to fight for us. I don't want somebody who can be leveraged by these corporations or by these groups or activists or whatever it may be. We want somebody who puts the people first. That is what they're saying. And so I think the way that people are messaging sometimes doesn't really work. And they're saying the right thing. Like when people say the establishment, like we get annoyed by that, right? Because we're like, we know, we kind of know what they're saying, but we also interpret it in a different way. But here, it truly is the establishment, okay? It truly is. I try to say, like, I try to spin it and be like the powers that be.
I know. I have looked for
the institutionalists. Like, I try to spin this in so many different ways.
I don't want to agree with them.
The only word that really makes sense is the establishment. I hate using it. I hate that word so much. But
Same.
Even me, I feel like, in a way, that I am fighting the establishment in the fact that folks have decided this is their candidate. I don't agree the way that this whole race is going because there's way too much money that's involved in it. So I'm just watching and seeing what people are saying in my comments and kind of like, as I'm talking to people. And the common theme to kind of wrap this up is that people just want someone who gives a damn.
Yeah.
All they want. They want somebody who's going to give a damn about them, that they can relate to, that is not 80 something years old, who's
Right.
out of touch, who can communicate, can talk, and
Yeah.
speak on their behalf. So I can see why Mai Vang, which I did my research on her, because I was like, because I have a list. I have a, I'm on
Hmm. Hmm.
of all the DSAs and all the people that were, and I looked, and she's like, I'm not a DSA, but the
Right.
DSA likes her because she is a progressive and she has those values. It makes sense,
It
right?
makes sense.
But she herself doesn't claim to be a Democrat. But I
Right.
can see why people are becoming enchanted, if that's the right word,
Hmm.
by some of these people, because they're speaking the language that they understand. It's not how Andy Bashir or some of these people will say, they say, well, you got to talk like normal people. It's not really that you need to
It's
talk
not
like
really that.
normal
Yeah.
people. You need to talk like you give a damn.
Right. Right.
Speak
And you
to
know
their
what?
speak to their issues. Go
Speak to
ahead,
their issues.
Myron.
I was going to
Mhm.
say, and many of them are following Mandami, right?
Mm-hmm.
He appears with a smile.
Yep.
He talks to regular issues like everybody else and expresses frustration with all the basic things we all express frustration with. And people, it resonates. And Tiff, to your point, my vein, she's at all these little festivals. We have these little festivals in these parks every weekend. She's there, she's approachable, she's very friendly, and she empathizes and talks about the issues just like everybody else. And she doesn't seem like she's paid for, bought, and and she's not talking these same old talking points. And what happens is you have someone like Doris Matsui. Doris Matsui can point to, I brought all these millions to the Sacramento area, right, to my district. And I helped with all these other things. It's not resonating with
It's not
people.
clicking. Yeah, because
Not clicking.
there is not, if the money doesn't really mean that much to people, like in
Well,
the scheme of
sometimes it
things,
can be a turnoff
right?
because
It can be a
Because they're like,
turnoff.
where did you get the money from? Like,
Yes.
but I think when people start throwing numbers out, so they're like, and Joe Biden used to do this too, and the White House used to do this when he was in office. They're like, well, we spent so much so and so on this and infrastructure, and people were like, but where's the projects? Like we don't we
yeah,
haven't seen the fruits of the labor yet. So you can throw the, we'll say the stock market is thriving. Okay, what about me? I
What
don't
about
even
me?
have stocks. So how is this helping me? So you have this, and when we talk about like democratic messaging,
Uh-huh.
it's not so much that the messaging is off, it's just how the messenger delivers that message. So to
Right.
your point about Mamdani, is that people get mad at me because I'm like, he's a great messenger, he's doing
It's
things,
a great messenger.
he's not doing anything magical, okay?
Nope.
He's not doing anything
he
magical.
has
Nope.
just
He
tapped
just has
into
common sense.
how to talk to people, how to
Yeah.
relate to them, so that his message resonates with them. They believe what he's saying. Like anybody can have, their stump speeches or whatever, but the things that he is tapping into are real issues, and he is saying in a way not professorial or pie in the sky kind
Yeah.
of thing. Like they seem to be doable things, and things that people want done. And
I,
ultimately, I think that's what most people want in a politician. They want someone who is going to address the needs of their community and follow through on them. But
mhm.
and
I
be
like that.
be in the community, right? So
right.
that's also part of it, because I thought that, I'm sure you saw this video yesterday that I put, that somebody had posted and I reposted it, of Chris Pratt. And he's a guy from Pennsylvania. He won the seat that oh God, he's white. I forgot his last name. He was like 80 something years old. He retired.
Oh, right.
I
Yeah.
cannot think of his last name, but he left, and so Chris Rabb won. He beat out Sharif Street, who was kind of like the more moderate in the race. There was another woman running. He's DSA. He is a democratic socialist. Hassan Piker went out there, that crazy nut. AOC endorsed him. I think Bernie even endorsed him. Like they all went out there. But what he did yesterday pissed them people off, okay? Because they asked him about Palatner and he kept it real. And that is the difference to me when
Right.
you start having these conversations, because they're not used to black leftists. They're really not.
Not at all.
They're not used to black leftists. What they're used to is AOC, she's a leftist, but she's also kind of like more a little bit adjacent that way. She's
Right.
still Latina, but she's still a little bit more adjacent. Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman, they're performative to me. They're just a lot. But we haven't really had a true Black leftist who is Black first, okay?
Right.
And
Right.
that's what we are going to see with Chris Rabb. And that shit pissed so many people off on the left because they don't know how to handle it. Because when you're talking about racism,
Yep.
and you're saying, and you are, pointing to these people and the fact that they are not listening and they get away with things that you can't get away, that shit starts to really start bothering them because they don't like that identity politics talk.
No, they want to talk about class.
Exactly. And class is a way to not talk about racism.
Yes,
And
it is.
you cannot divorce them. They go together, you
Yes,
know.
yes, it is.
And I'm gonna have to start keeping an eye on this guy because I love it.
Interesting.
You know, something else I think that we should watch around the country, particularly with the redistricting to get more Democrats. So we have a district out here, I think it's District 12, I think, and it's Kevin Riley, who's a longtime Republican Trump supporter. But he got redistricted and he changed to independent.
Oh, Kevin Kiley.
Kevin Kiley, right? He went independent. Now he won the primary against Dr. Richard Penn. So they're in the runoff in November, but he softened his tone away from all the Trump stuff, all that stuff that he is almost 100% on record voting for all the nonsense. And I don't think he's unusual. There will be Trump people who got redistricted who would soften their tone to try to get reelected and try to convince the Democrats who are in those districts, oh no, I'm a moderate. Like he's independent. He changed his whole party designation.
Yeah, I know a lot of them have done that.
Yep.
So people are going to have to be on their P's and Q's. And that's where I say when I talk about vetting or folks being familiar with the folks on their ballot is knowing their track record. Like it's one thing to hear them speak and they can be very charismatic and, impressive and say all the good things, the things you want to hear. But let's go back and look at what they've done, especially if they've been in office. If they haven't been in office, then let's look at their business. Let's look at what they've done in their community and those kinds of things. Because, Trump hadn't been in office, but he had a track record in business. Okay.
Yes.
And so those things matter and people need to, be more savvy about their voting and not, but I feel like a lot of the younger voters are just, they're listening to the message and it sounds good. And as you said, I think Black people are progressive. We have always had to push for progress. Okay. And so populism is popular now and people still need to be careful with that because that is what Trump sold is a populist message. It is also the same message that Mussolini and Hitler sold.
Yeah. And you know what? And not for nothing, that's what Steyer was trying to do in California. He was trying to buy populism. Like he was trying to buy it and it did not work. But he got 20% of the votes in the primary.
Right.
Like he got a lot of votes. And the question would be, will those people move to Becerra? And California's voting history since 2000 indicates that the vast majority of them will go to Becerra. Like the fact that Becerra even won in Riverside County where that sheriff was running, it's a good indication. And Becerra ended up with 2 million votes, which for the midterm, it looks like that's probably he's going to double that. So I think he's going to win by a lot.
Yeah.
12 percentage points. But Tiff, I want to say something. You said something about speaking to the people and the messaging and things like that. Some of that is about, how Mondami just speaks like a regular human and he says the things that everyone else is worried about. Some of that is the corporatization of politics, with that we need a corporate CEO, because if you think about it, your own jobs in the private sector, CEOs will talk, they're coming to give an employee town hall meeting and they're talking stocks, they're talking how they're doing in the market, they're talking expansion. But really, when you're an employee, you're like, well, what's in it for me?
Exactly.
Like, am I going to see an increase in my pay because I got rent, I got school, I got gas? Like I don't care when you're talking about the stock market. And so, and that's where what happened last time. They were talking about eggs and gas,
Yep.
right? The younger people were talking about Gaza. And when you look at the polling, nobody cares about Gaza except online young people. That's it. It polls really low, I should say. And so for the candidates like Rob, you were talking about heading into November, it's not so much the messaging, just talk about what people are worried about or concerned about and want to hear, because they don't want to hear the way high level, like you were saying about Biden. Oh, we got $10 billion for infrastructure. Well, that don't do nothing for me. I'm sitting in traffic.
Exactly. And I honestly think the thing with the Gaza thing, I think they don't even care about Gaza. Let's be real. They don't care.
Right, they don't.
What they're more focused on is don't give Israel any more money.
Yes.
That is what the pivot has been. Don't give Israel any more money. But they have a valid, I mean, there is a valid conversation to have around that, because we're in a war that was that we jumped into to help Israel, right? So we're still in it, and gas prices are still high. They've come down a little bit, but at any point they could shoot right back up. So there is a valid conversation to have about donations, and should we be giving Israel all of these arms, and should we fund the Iron Dome? I mean, there's a valid conversation to have, but it gets all jumbled up in the whole like mix, because it starts with because it becomes anti-Semitic, and then it also becomes you hate Gaza, and we're now bickering without having a real constructive conversation. And all of it gets lost, because I think all of us, each and every one of us up here, we may have started at X position, but we throughout time have moved to a different position on how we feel about this war, about about Israel and all, about the way that they handle the war that they were in. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that we have evolved on these issues. Like this one guy, he pulls this tweet from the other day, and it said that I said Hamas invaded Israel. I'm like, that's not a lie. That happened. Like, what are you trying to tell me? Like, he's like, you don't care. But I said, where in this tweet did I lie? Because last time I checked, on October 7th, they invaded. Whether you agree or not, he's like, well, they did all of this. I said, on 10/7, did they invade? Did they invade Israel? Yes or no? If your answer is yes, then I ain't saying nothing wrong. Right. So it's like the conversation can never be a real conversation with some of these people, because they're so stupid.
Right. And it's just that online energy, because they want that algorithmic lift that certain messaging and things give them or whatever. Some of them are not trying to have these nuanced conversations, because I agree with them. I am a veteran, and I think that there is too much money being put into the war, machine, because there are a lot of places where it could be better spent. I'm also concerned with the alliance. Like, I think NATO is important to us, because, it has, I feel like, kept us safe and kept the world more democratic writ large since World War II. And because we are distancing ourselves from it, we are seeing a global rise in this authoritarianism. Like, there is a lot of conservative leaders in a lot of these EU countries and things. And so I think that like, we need to have more kind of nuanced conversations. Like, I'm also concerned. I wanted to ask you guys if you were aware of it and what you thought, but they are trying to push a bill through that is going to merge much of Israel and the US's AI military systems.
I saw that.
Yes, that concerns me. No, we don't need to be doing that. We can still help and partner with Israel like we do many other NATO countries, like we did in normal time, so to speak. But we don't need to get that wrapped up in another country and bring them into our military intelligence. They want to build factories here. that like, nah, I'm
Mhm.
not down with that.
You know what? It's
That's
interesting
bigger than
because
APAC though. Okay.
it is bigger than that. And you know what, Dee, you may remember, I want to say it was during the 90s or 2000s. I think it was under Clinton, maybe under Obama, where Mossad got caught spying on the United States.
Yes, I
Right?
do.
Like that's not like fake news. Like that literally happened. And I want to make a point about that because Tiff, you said something about God, Hamas invaded them and our ties with Israel and everything in the military industrial complex. I've made a post about
That's the
this
word I was looking
before.
for.
Mhm. And I'm going to say it again, that sometimes US citizens, all of us, forget that we live inside a superpower,
Hmm.
that we live inside a superpower, and that superpower does superpower things around the world.
Exactly.
And they're not always clean. But to your point about NATO and 100 something military bases around the world, those things are there not just for trade. Those things are so that we don't have to think about our safety from outside forces. Like we're our
Right.
own enemy inside the country, with our guns and everything and violence. And people tend to forget that. Like it's just we're inside that superpower.
Exactly. And I have worked within the military
Yes.
aspect of that superpower. I have worked in intelligence and inside that as a civilian for the DOD and archiving military records
Sure.
for the Department of Defense. So, I mean, I get it. Like once you commit or you're drafted or whatever,
Yeah.
that's your job and that you have to do that. But as citizens, I feel like, that is part of what makes us a democracy is our ability to speak out against it, just as people did during Vietnam and the other wars. So I
Yeah.
do think that more attention needs to be brought to this because I
Yes.
don't think a lot of people understand what they're trying to do. And that would be a very big mistake because like you, Myron, I
Yes.
remembered and I also am a big NCIS fan and so,
Yeah, and I think that will be, it should be for concerned voters a big issue headed into 2028. That's another reason to get a Democrat in office to stop that. Like,
mhm,
yeah, you have international relationships and alliances, and you're going to have aid, and that aid, some of that aid is going to be military aid, but at the same time, there has to be a cap, a watchdog. There has to be something that says we're not going to give away everything,
right.
right?
There has to be a distinct line and difference between their country and our country,
Exactly.
our safety and their. I mean, they're not always going to be aligned,
Right. Right.
and we have to be able to do that. And I think
And
we've done a pretty good job of
mhm.
doing that because I remember when I was active duty in the military, we had a lot of military operations and things that we did in partnership with German units and things. So
Ooh,
there's always this kind of train,
sure.
inter, military and country training and those types of things. But at the same time, our interests are not totally the same or aligned, and there is no way that we should be allow another country to be that embedded in our intelligence and our military operation. That's
I
dangerous.
think one of the strategies behind that, one of the strategies, it probably is not even the main one, but it makes it a talking point where on the left can attack Democrats heading into 2028 for not denouncing it and saying that they're going to get rid of it. And on the
Mhm.
right, attacking Democrats saying you're not loyal to our most loyal ally. And so
Exactly.
now you get this candidate,
Place. Well,
right? Because
and you,
even in California, on my post anyway with Becerra, I always were getting comments from people saying, "Does he support Israel?
oh my
Does
God.
he?" And it's like, my
Yes,
God, we're in California. Leave us
telling
alone.
you, this is what people are obsessed with. They're not
Right,
obsessed with Gaza. They're obsessed with Israel.
right.
Like this one guy yesterday, he's like, well, you're just gonna go back. He's something to the point like where you're just gonna not care about these leftists anymore. When I think it was a Chris Rabb guy. He was like, you're not gonna care about it when he starts criticizing Israel. I said, I don't think about Israel like y'all think about Israel. This is Israel
Right.
on my mind 24/7. I don't think about them.
Think
I'm
about
sorry
it.
to tell you. Like,
Exactly. And
they're
someone in the
obsessed. They
comments has
are absolutely obsessed, and a lot of people are. Even I was with my parents this past weekend, and my dad's TikTok. Like, I'm listening to all his, like, he's like, because he's obsessed with TikTok, so he's like, going up and down.
the toy.
But I like to listen to it because I like to see what is coming into his algorithm, because everybody's
Right.
algorithm
You
is
should.
different. So he does get a lot of things about Israel, and if he's getting it, that means a lot of other people are getting it, right?
Right. That's exactly right.
He's getting like the Mehdi Hassans, he's getting the Joyanne Reeds, and which are people that are much further away from the average person's thoughts, because there are people that are like anti-Israel, right? Then there's people that are not necessarily anti-Israel, but they do want some structure around how much support we're giving to Israel and how much they're influencing our politics, which is a valid conversation.
I saw a shift after Kamala lost. I saw a shift in my own friends and family who are staunch members of the Black church, where before that, the support for the idea in the nation of Israel, because of how it's preached in American style Christianity, that Christians, and I'm talking about Black Christians,
I know where you're going,
in favor. And now in my family group chats with some preachers and these church folk, they shifted away. Now, I'm not saying that they will not vote in favor, helping in those. I'm just saying that the language has shifted to what you were saying, Tiffany. Why are we giving so much? And should we stop it? And there's a shift.
And there's going to be a valid conversation come 2028, because the MOU is going to expire, right? That was signed under President Obama. I think it expires in 2030. So there's going to be a conversation about how we're going to move forward with Israel. And if Bibi Netanyahu's in power, then baby, we're going to have a real hard conversation to have, because people, and that their election is this year in October, I believe it is. And we're going to see where Israel lands on this, because that will determine how we move forward. Because he is not somebody that we can trust. I mean, he was excited that Trump came back into office because
he's the Trump of Israel. I mean, they are two peas in the same pod, both trying to stay in power to keep from having accountability. Like those people were marching in the streets for a year before the October 7th situation occurred. And that allowed him to then, take power and to delay elections and those types of things. And people kind of let him because they wanted some justice for, what had happened. But of course, he is taking it to extremes. They don't care about that man for the most part. Just like most Americans here, like it is a third of our society, I think, that is like this MAGA, brand. And they have that same thing there, just like, but those are the people who are in their parliament, who are in charge, who are in power.
That's exactly right.
Yes,
but I mean, like one of my besties was Jewish. I mean, I don't, dislike the Jewish people or whatever, but this idiot they have in charge over there, I don't like him any more than I like the idiot we have in charge.
Right. And I think that's a good distinction, right? Because and that's why I don't like the term Zionist.
Right.
Because it's now used as a slur.
It is.
Yeah. I don't like that. But I understand. Listen, there are always going to be people who are Zionists, and there's always going to be people who are anti-Zionist. This is how we roll. There's people that are anti-Black. There's people that are pro-Black, right? I mean, this is part of society. But what I always say is the same thing you said, right? That there are Americans who voted for Trump, and those Americans. Trump does not reflect America as a whole. He reflects MAGA and the people that voted for him. The rest of us can't stand him. Okay.
Can't stand
So
him.
there are people who have been in Israel that have, like you said, have been against this man from the beginning. And
Right.
and they didn't want him back in office, but he ended up getting elected, right? So now they got to vote his ass out.
They got to get him
We
out.
have an election. They got to vote him out the same way we voted Trump out in 2020. The same way we need to vote whomever out as a Republican, or not vote him out, but not re-elect a Republican who's going to continue with the bullshit that he's been doing. So that's the whole thing about democracy. And it sucks because yes, the Palestinian people have suffered. They have suffered because this man wanted to he literally destroyed Gaza. He said, and it's a whole thing. So when people say, well, you don't care about Palestine, and I think all of us care about Palestine. We all care. We all care about Jewish people.
But I live right here in Tennessee.
We live here. We have to start using logic when it comes to this stuff, because guess what? You let this man get back in office, and now we're suffering. They're suffering. We're all suffering.
You know what's funny, Tiff?
How does that help anyone? Because
to that point, I made a sort of semi-humorous post about the World Cup and why so many African nationals were supporting Mexico over South Africa. And I dug into it on TikTok and I found some, little rivalries and stuff that basically there's issues between the many nations in Africa and South Africa. But I just made a flippant little video. That thing has 1 million views over on TikTok and about 500 comments on Twitter. And you know what it was? It was the fight between South Africans saying they have too many illegal immigrants, meaning other Africans from other nations in Africa, and they're stealing their jobs, setting up illegal businesses, and taxing their healthcare. And all the other nations, people are saying, you guys are being xenophobic towards other Africans. And so then I start catching strays because I made the original video. And I was like, look, I'm just talking World Cup stuff. I'm just playing around, right? And then I made a follow-up video to say, okay, look, I got it. I understand, da-da-da. And multiple people were saying to me, and this is to your point, well, don't you watch this on the news? And I said, well, hold on. We don't get news about what's happening between multiple states inside of Africa. We barely are getting news about ICE rounding up people in LA at the World Cup. We don't know what's happening over there.
I just ran up on a school here yesterday, and I mean, we can't even absorb all the shit that's happening here. No. But I did find it funny. Speaking of South Africa, we're in didn't they play Mexico yesterday or something? And people
Mexico won.
People were cheering for Mexico, and I'm like, y'all are all
look at how Mexico treated the athletes, like the side by side of. How was it the Somali team? I can't remember. It was treated when they arrived in the U.S. and when they arrived in Mexico, like night and day.
And it's just like, you know what?
It's going to be a wild ride with the World Cup.
Oh my gosh.
Everything happening.
And the African, I think, official who couldn't even get in here. And FIFA, why didn't they take up for that man? Why didn't they set the situation up better? That's supposed to be their bestie in the White House. And I understand that other they
did it to the Iranians.
Yes.
They held up Iranians for 10, 12 hours.
Right. I think there were some folks in Ireland and a couple other countries whose visas were, documentation was changed or denied at the last minute, and they had to, and these people have already spent money and done things, and that just is where we are. Like this man talking about how many people, how he was going to help people and save them money or whatever, and they are just wasting our money like night and day. Like Tiff and I were talking about all the destruction that he's doing in DC, that they're having to redo things and to undo things, and we're gonna have to redo some more things, just draining our treasury over dumb stuff. Over dumb stuff.
Kind of the white trassification of DC.
I love it.
It sure is. Hey, I gotta drop, but before we go about the World Cup, the one thing that I am absolutely enjoying is the outfits. Okay, did you see? I don't know who it was. It was one of the African nations, and they came through and they had their leopard
Yes,
I know.
yes, yes,
Radiance came
yes.
through. They had their little outfits on. I'm like, you know what?
Fantastic.
They are showing out. Okay, I love it. And I
Love it.
appreciate it because you know what? We all need a little
We
bit.
got style.
We got.
I
They
love
got.
it. I do love it too.
Some Africans came through with that leopard. I was like, oh, okay, I see y'all.
It looked good.
I got to drop. Y'all can keep
All right.
talking. Have a good weekend. Okay.
All right.
Fantastic.
Talk to you later.
Thanks, Tiff. I won't
Bye.
keep Myron too long, but I do want to ask him about a couple of other things. Have a great rest of the day. And Tiff, real quick, you're on a panel. Is that coming up? I meant to
Yeah,
talk.
tell me about
The
the panel.
27th. So it'll be taped there, so you guys can watch it later on the Maryland Democrats YouTube. So it's me, Isaiah, this other guy named Josh who does lots of. He has a big Instagram account, and we're just going to talk about how we win. What the same things we're talking about here about messaging and how we win in the digital age. So I'm looking forward to it because I think it'll be an interesting conversation. And I'm curious to see what they're going to ask. I mean, there's so many ways that we can win in 2026, and there's not one right way because every district and every city and every state is different. How we win in Maryland is not the same way you win in California.
Exactly.
But I think California taught us a really good lesson about coalition and people coming together for one candidate and the usage of social media in order to get the message out. And which is something we did here with Angela also Brooks, right? Because we had to defeat the money. When you have to defeat the money, you have to have a whole lot of people trying to help on the ground in social media. It's not one thing, it's many things. And I think
that's gonna be fun.
California did a great job of doing that.
Well, congratulations on getting
and all the other people who did a damn good job trying to help Javier get elected. So bye guys. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye. Well, Myron, I'm not going to keep you too long, but I do want to ask you a little bit about some of the things that I have seen going on with the races there. Bass and the other candidate. Can you just kind of give me a little overview of where things stand with her and then now they have decided on who her opponent is, correct?
For which candidate was it? Mayor Bass.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So this is another really interesting race because you have Mayor Bass, the incumbent, Black woman, long political history, and she'll be running against Nithya Rahman. And so Nithya Rahman, Indian American. She's married to a guy who's in the Hollywood business. It's LA, so Hollywood business. And she is, I don't know if she's DSA, but I do believe she is a socialist, like a little bit different in my vein. Now, she was a city council member and she was a backer and supporter of Karen Bass.
Oh.
And at the last, she had endorsed Karen Bass for the election. And then with just maybe like a day or two to go before one could register to run for mayor, she jumped in the race. So she jumped in at the last minute. And I think it's because she and her coalition saw an opportunity because Spencer Pratt was in there and they thought, I don't know if they thought that Pratt would overtake Karen Bass and Nithya could somehow get in there somehow. There was some controversy about Karen Bass actually wanting Spencer Pratt to get past the primary because then it's just Republican versus Democrat. I don't know about all that, but looking at the race totals, and unfortunately looking at the low turnout of Los Angelinos, low turnout.
That is a story I hear in a lot of places where voting is so easy, and it breaks my heart because here in Tennessee, you got to jump through so many hurdles. And
so to your point, Dee, we get a sample ballot about a month before the election. It has all the stuff on it, where you vote, how to vote, all the rules, all that. And then you get a ballot in the mail, right? And then if you could have opted into, once you get your ballot, you could get text messages as well telling you your ballot you should have your ballot. And then when you mail your ballot or put it in a drop box and they're all over, or you get to hand it to your mail person, like you could do it many ways, you will get a text message telling you that the post office now has your ballot. And then once your ballot reaches the voting people and is counted, you get a text message telling you your vote has been counted. Like it is, or you can. Most of us can walk to our voting location. That's how comprehensive it is. So
Wow.
Angelinos just did not get out to vote. Now it's going to be interesting because it's unfair that Karen Bass was blamed for the fire, the Palisades fire, and unfair that the surrounding cities that have their own mayors, that a lot of these Hollywood people who were backing Spencer Pratt were blaming Karen Bass for, and they have their own mayors. But Los Angeles is just so big, it's just everyone thinks she's the mayor of the entire Los Angeles region, and she's not. And you can see that by there were people posting online who were in Los Angeles County wondering why they couldn't vote for mayor of the city of Los Angeles. That's the level that we were dealing with in Southern Cal. So I think Karen Bass is going to squeak out a victory, but I also think it's going to get very ugly. It's going to get very ugly because they're already launched blaming her for ICE, blaming her for the fires, blaming her for intractable problems that all big cities have. Right.
Right. And I felt like she was a bit of that progressive wing.
She is.
eh,
Yes. And you know what?
they're eating their
You bring
own.
up a good point, D, because I liken that to how the Bernie bro white progressives tried to convince people that Kamala Harris was a progressive. And her whole political career, she was running as the progressive. Like
Yes.
from DA, the Democratic establishment didn't want her to run for DA. She did it and she won. They didn't want her to run for Attorney General. She did it and she won. And as soon as she started running for president, they're like, oh, this lady is not progressive. They flipped on her just like that. And so Karen Bass will face that type of onslaught as well.
That's unfortunate because I, I
Mhm.
I wondered about, how well she would do as mayor. I think she's done a decent job, but
It's
unfortunately,
good.
natural disasters, these things are beyond folks' control. And like you said, you pointed to in your explanation, a lot of people don't understand what she actually has jurisdiction of and control of. And of course, these online narratives gain steam and they just take over the fact that they're accusing the lady of leaving when she was not even in the
She's
country,
already
but
gone, already gone. And the work she did in fighting back against ICE, she set the example for the rest of the nation because
Mhm.
she and I think DC and maybe Chicago were some few of the first cities that were hit, but
Right.
especially Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And she was, and I made a post about it, but at the time, she was on the front line of the war against ICE.
Hmm.
And as you're running for mayor, you're not anticipating you're fighting the federal government, right? And it even took a little bit, to my liking, a little bit too long for Gavin Newsom to step in and help as the governor, but he did eventually get there, right? So
Right.
she took bad publicity for that. When you're the mayor of a city, how are you supposed to be fighting ICE? And then we saw what happened to ICE in all those other white communities, right? And now
Uh,
it's sort of forgotten that she was the first target of ICE, and it's
I
still
remember
happening
I
down there.
I specifically remember when they came to that park, she was outraged.
She
The
was
kids were
outraged.
out there playing in the park
Yep.
and they had this big show of Ice Force out
Yes.
there and she, came out and spoke about it. I
She was
saw a lot.
fighting the battle, and I'm not her advisor, but I would say she and her campaign, they got to get into those neighborhoods and they got to get those people, if they're not registered, get them registered and get them to vote. Because one other angle that I think that Nithya Raman is going to go after her on is age. They're going to
Mhm.
go after her in
But she's
age.
not that old, is
She's
she?
not that old. No, but Nithya Rama is younger. And I think, like my vein up here, I just think that's one of the positions that people who are going after Democrats from the left, they're going after older, what they perceive as
Mhm.
older, because that's just in the population, in the populace right now.
It's easy. It's an easy,
Yep.
target kind of thing.
Yep.
And, they can go after her being older, but not black.
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly it. And with her husband, Ramon, I mean, her husband being in Hollywood, she's going to have some Hollywood money coming
You
because
know.
because they want one thing that she already hit Karen Bass on was in tax incentives and tax breaks for studios to do more movies in LA and TV in LA and everything. And the mayor, you could do those things, but it has to go through the city council. You know, it's the process of doing those things. And she
I
got
do.
some things done, but the Ramon camp was saying it wasn't fast enough. And that's why Hollywood, you know, you're going to lose the industry, you know, those big threats and things like that. So I think Hollywood people are going to support Nithya. And it's going to be interesting if the ground support that got Karen Bass elected in the first place is going to come out and vote for her. Because if they come out, she's going to win. That's going to be the question.
I hope they do. I'd like to see her get another shot. Like, I wasn't so sure, but I don't live there. I wasn't so sure of her being able to do it, but she got elected. And I think,
Exactly.
you know, once she got elected, she has done, you know, a decent job.
She
This
has.
is what I see from Tennessee. You know?
She's a good mayor. She's a good mayor.
Well, good, good.
Yeah,
I'm
you
glad
know,
to.
it's tough because Los Angeles it's our biggest city and it's not the capital. Right. And so even though it has all the publicity and all this stuff, it's not our capital.
What is that,
And
Sacramento?
Sacramento is the capital. And,
Yeah.
you know, that's 350 miles away.
Mhm.
And so she still has to work with the capital to get, you know, like all cities, you got to
Right.
get in with the capital. Like New York and Albany it's the same kind of deal, right?
Mhm.
But she carries the weight of that city, and it does have the power, the money, you know, and all that. I think she deserves a second shot. I think she's done a good job. It's going to be a tough fight to November, though.
Yeah, I mean, she's carried y'all through some really, really tough moments, and I do think she deserves
Yeah.
another shot because like I said, from what I can see here, from here, and the people, you know, I have a few relatives who live out there, but not in that area. They're more in the Bay Area or whatever. One more thing I'm
Yeah.
going to ask you about. This data center surge that we have going on. What are your thoughts on it? And are there any areas in California? Because I mean, you know, you got Silicon Valley down there, so you guys are kind of used to these tech pros, but they're moving out into the rest of the nation now. And I'm telling you, I cannot stand them because, you know, they're getting us on every side here. You know, Elon put the big Colossus, you know, the XAI, the Grok teacher in Memphis, polluting and all of that stuff. And now we find out, like, just like he did, they worked a lot of deals behind the scenes with local officials, chambers of commerce, and utility, you know, CEOs and those kinds of things, before it even becomes public knowledge. So I find out a couple of weeks ago, we have like 60 of these. I've been railing on Elon, but we've got like 60 in the state. About almost half of them, like 26, 27, are here in Nashville. And they are trying to bring, and that includes 2 that have not actually been built. And one of them is near our zoo in my neighborhood out here in South Nashville. And then another one on the north side, which is the predominantly Black neighborhood, the historic neighborhood where we have Fisk University and TSU and all of that. And they're doing it. They somehow worked a deal with the folks at Fisk to build one on their campus. And so you got Justin Pearson in Memphis fighting Elon and all of his mess. And now Justin Jones, who was a professor and was about to teach, you know, he was already teaching in the John Lewis Center about, you know, civil rights and those types of things. And but he was about to teach a class on environmental racism, and it got canceled.
Sure.
Okay.
You know what? And you bring up a good point in that there's I'm trying to remember the number, but I saw a report, I think it was the Wall Street Journal, that said that there are already approved plans for another 1,100 data centers across the country. Like, and so whereas it's just now hitting the public consciousness over this last 6 months, they've been building these for the last 5 or 10 years. And so California was early, and mostly they were putting them in remote areas where small government, right, and most of those city council or county supervisors in those small rural areas, most are, not all, but most are Republican, but not all. And then they moved from there to poorer neighborhoods. And poor people have been complaining about data centers for 10 years, but it doesn't reach the national, it doesn't, you have to put them where white people are, and then it reaches. And so now you're seeing the backlash around the country, but some of that backlash is a little late because they're built or they've already approved or the money has changed hands, the tax incentives are there. You see, they were booing Governor Whitmer because she approved a bunch of, they fast tracked some data centers and she approved them. And she was at a grand opening or something. And at her next stump speech, some other issue, they were getting on her about data centers. And so you see it happen in Utah. That billionaire from Shark Tank, he was planning to build a data center that was bigger, more land than Central Park, like massive, on the outskirts of Salt Lake City. And
Heaven.
Yes, yes. And the people there protested their, I don't know if it's their city council or county supervisors or whatever. And it sounded county supervisors like, this is a done deal. We don't care what you guys have to say. We are doing this. And this is a Republican state, right? Just like Tennessee, you got people complaining, it's a Republican state. You have these Republican enclaves of people now understanding the environmental impact to data centers on fresh water, groundwater, on sound because of the humming.
The noise, it's
Yes.
the air pollution, the noise pollution, and water pollution. And so they
Yes.
want to build this like literally next door to the parking lot
Yes.
for the zoo.
And there's no employees. They just have a few employees that just check on them, but it's not massive amount of employees that's going to filter money into the community. It's just a giant big box of computers absorbing energy and using fresh water. And if it's Elon's, it's producing sludge.
Exactly. And he hasn't fulfilled his contract. He was supposed to recycle this water, reclaim or whatever. And of course he hasn't done it. Like none of these guys show themselves to be honorable in their promises. Right. It's so reckless. And it is as you said, the rural and the poor, usually Black and brown communities that they're doing this in. And what you're speaking to, like some of these things have been around. Well, when I started doing my research and everything, well, lo and behold, I found out there is a huge one by Meta in my hometown that has been operating and is continuing to build, and they have contracts for more, build out or whatever.
Right.
For about the past 2-3 years.
Yeah. And a your community gets no benefit. You don't get tax revenue because they're giving it all away. They're just saying, "Oh yeah, come here," and incentives, and they never get anything from them. It's just a big old giveaway.
And the harm that they leave behind. Like I'm still like really angry that Elon has just been given basically the key to the state. Not, how sometimes they give people the key to the city. Right. They have given this man key to the state because, he's down there in Memphis poisoning and doing all the stuff. And then they gave him this crazy ass contract for what they call the Music City Loop. So he can build this tunnel from downtown, like an express route from downtown to the airport. Well, I live out by the airport. Like the zoo is on one side of me and the airport's on the other side. And so my state representative was asking them when they found out about it. Of course, the governor and these people had already kind of inked the deal. And, when the legislators found out about it, my representative, who is an attorney, was saying, well, have you gotten environmental impact studies? And what about the gravel? What's going to happen with that? They hadn't done any of that. So you know what happened? They've actually started building. And the thing that makes, environmental studies important, but even more so here is because Tennessee sits on what it geologically speaking is called cursed terrain, which not cursed as in voodoo, but
Yeah.
like it's a lot of limestone. And so that is
Right.
why we have a lot of caves and stuff here in Tennessee and Kentucky. So this type of terrain is very prone to sinkholes and things. So, you know, this man is not had any, you know, specialist or anything to help him. And I mean, I wouldn't use that loop for anything in the
Sure.
world, you
Sure.
know? So, I mean, they're just letting him do it. Here's the crazy thing. When they started digging, they did use a local contractor who, you know, kind of does this work. And the local contractor finally quit because first off, he found out they weren't paying them. They was complaining about being paid. And the last straw, because, you know, he was keeping it under wraps about them being underpaid and was trying to deal with it. But then he found out that Elon's company, what is it, Boring, was trying to poach his workers. Okay. And so he said, I'm just going to tell y'all what's going on here. Like he said that they were working really in unsafe environments. You know, they're digging so far underground,
Right.
and, you know, they have to have these support structures put in place. And,
Sure.
you know, this is someone who that's what they do. And he said the depth at which they were digging required cement, you know, retaining
Sure,
walls and
sure.
these kinds of things. He said they were using 2x4s. And some of the boring and employees and stuff weren't even wearing safety hats and stuff in this job. So, you know, this man, I just think about how he treated X when he took it over, how he treated Twitter. And that's how he approaches his work.
Everything. And you know what? That is exactly why Iran just said all of his business interests in the Middle East are now viable targets. And I just went, oh, well.
I'm not mad
You're a
at
trillionaire, sir. They're calling you a trillionaire. You can afford it.
Exactly. Well, I am so glad that you popped in and joined us today, Myron. It was a real treat. And I want to thank everyone who has joined us. Like, we got some folks over here on Spoutable. We got some folks on Substack, and we got some folks on YouTube. And we appreciate y'all throwing us the hearts and love and joining us. Again, like I said, anytime you want, you're welcome. So I'm always going to send you that link so you can pop in anytime. All right. No problem. Well, I hope you have a great rest of the day and weekend. And guys, we'll see you all in another 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye.